That was John LeRoy on the keyboard, just kind of setting it up for an hour of easy listening. Over here is Zechariah Nelson. He's the guy on the soundboard. And over there in the window is Marjorie Geiger. She plays dessert here at Jazz Vespers. I thought I'd just acknowledge her. Now, John and I, when you're the host and the musician, you kind of go back and forth on a theme. And we went back and forth on several themes on email and never really closed the loop. So John has two themes, Thanksgiving and Remembrance. And I have several themes because I got to thinking of things I'd like to share, so I don't have a theme really. But John, thank you for having a theme. I just want you to. I want to start off with one of the simplest poems I know from my friend Mary Oliver. And she's remarked about this particular poem that the words that shouldn't be in the poem shouldn't be in the poem. You should be efficient with your words. And it's on prayer, praying. It doesn't have to be the blue iris. It could be the weeds in a vacant lot or a few small stones. Just pay attention, then patch a few words together and don't try to make them elaborate. This isn't a contest, but the doorway into thanks and a silence in which another voice may speak. So may other voices speak to you while you're listening to John. John, what was the name of that song? I was sitting there trying to figure it out.
100 Ways.
100 Ways.
It was a tune that Joey DiFrancesco used to play a lot, and we recently lost him.
That's right.
He was a great jazz organist,
Right.
and that was one of his favorite tunes to play.
Joey DiFrancesco. We can honor him just by saying his name and listen to his music. In my state of overactivity, I was online trying to get the address for the Wolf Hollow Brewery to give the address for coordinates and a friend's GPS. And when I Googled Wolf Hollow Brewery, a lot of breweries showed up. And I said, holy crow, look at all the breweries. And there was one brewery called the Good Word Brewery in Decatur, Georgia. And I just said, good word. Well, you know, that's like the Bible, and there's a lot of... So I clicked on that, and I got their mission statement. Breweries have mission statements. Let us fill your glass and clear the plates. Good Word Brewing and Public House starts with a village and the folks who make up the community. We are a collection of neighbors, its leaders, its youth, and its misfits. All are welcome in Duluth, Georgia. Good Word is a place to meet new friends, reconnect with old ones, to share stories, to celebrate, to propose, to commiserate, to communicate. We serve deliciously locally sourced food and the absolute best beer we can produce. We pride ourselves on empathetic and patient service. However, there are still just a backdrop intent on not interrupting your experience. Because we are driven by community, we are a public house. Good Word is founded on a vision to foster community. You know, if it wasn't for the alcohol, they could be a church. You know what I'm saying? And I just said, wow, you never know what you're going to find when you go looking for a GPS coordinate on the internet. John, back to you. The days of wine and roses, laugh and run away like a child at play. Well, I just went flat, so screw it. Is that a Johnny Mercer song?
It is a Henry Mancini.
Henry Mancini song. That's right. That's right. Well, you know, it's a wonderful story of love and not being able to be redeemed in some way. So it's got a bittersweet story to it. The lectionary today had a story that wasn't bittersweet, although there was some animosity in it. And it's the story of Jesus coming into Jericho in a crowd gathering, and one of the richest guys in town was kind of enamored with Jesus, and he was also very short, so he couldn't see with the crowd. He couldn't see Jesus. So he climbed up a sycamore tree, a tree of observation. And as Jesus came walking by, Jesus saw him, and he called him by name. He said, Zacchaeus, Zacchaeus, come down. I'm gonna have lunch at your house today. Oh, wow. And the crowd kind of backed up because Zacchaeus was a tax collector. And he made a lot of money and he siphoned it off, and he was not really well thought of, but he was very rich. And why would Jesus be going to lunch with someone like that? So when they got to the house, Zacchaeus, who was aware of all his baggage, says to Jesus, I'm going to follow you. I'm going to sell half of my stuff and give it all away to the poor. And if there's anybody I've messed up doing business, I'm going to apologize and set it straight. And Jesus said, my son, you are redeemed. I will welcome you into my kinship. And Jesus went on his way, and Zacchaeus went on his way, a changed person. Now, in the scribes that create the Bible in the New Testament, there's a little bit of editorial that goes on. Zacchaeus' name translates in Hebrew to pure, not circumspect, not crooked, not bad, pure. And as pure as the star of Wine and Roses was, she couldn't get over that first step to be redeemed. And I suppose there's a lesson in all of this. Bravo. There are places I remember. Place is a very important part of our lives, and sometimes we just kind of walk in it or sit in it, and we don't necessarily feel it until we miss it a bit. And this is one of the oldest folk stories in the world. It goes back to the Minoan civilization in Crete, about 12 or 1300 BC. And I'm going to set it in Schenectady in 1815. And the character leading it is a guy named Joseph Yates, who was the second governor of the state of New York, lived right over there, and right over there had a plantation out in Alplaus. And he was so enamored of this place. You know, he'd been in the Revolution, he'd been the chairman of the Committee of Public Safety, he'd been a lawyer. He was so active. And it came his time to pass away. And he said to his sons and household, he says, carry me out on my mattress. Carry me down besides the river. I want to be on the banks of my beloved Mohawk River when I pass away. So they did. And he laid down there right about in the middle of the park. And when it came his time to pass, he reached his hands out and he clutched the dirt of the Mohawk Valley. And he breathed his last. And when he came to, he was standing in front of the pearly gates. And there was St. Peter saying, Joe Yates, so good to see you. You've been doing such good things down there. It's great to have you here. Come right in. Oh, wait a minute. You can't bring anything into heaven that's from down there. So you gotta, whatever you got in your hands, you gotta drop. Oh, I can't drop these. This is the lifeblood of my family for generations. We came over and we bought this land from the Indians. We farmed it. It's produced our livelihood. Well, I'm afraid you can't come in. You want to think this over? Sit on the bench. So Joe goes over and he sits on the bench. And he sits on the bench. And God hears about this. So God comes out. He's got his long white robe on and his beard. And he says, Joseph, we'd like to have you inside. We got things planned for you, but you gotta, no, I'm not gonna do it. No, you know the story. I know the story. I watched the story. I helped the story. Yeah. So you have a big meeting of the angels. And one of them says, he was a hunter. What if you had some of his hunting buddies go out and talk to him? And he'd miss that. So God goes out dressed as a hunter and says, Joe, we got all the guys bivvied up around the old fireplace in there, and we got a little bit of hooch, and we got a little bit of game, and we're gonna have a wonderful dinner, and it would be so much better if you were there. And he says, oh, no, I can't do that. I know what I gotta do. So they're completely perplexed, and the littlest angel says, granddaughter. What are you talking about? I said, granddaughter. He'll be a sucker for his granddaughter. Oh. So God dresses up like his granddaughter. 5 years old, she skips out. Grandpa, it's all set up for you. We have a big family dinner. We're all around the table, but there's nobody at the head of the table, and that's got to be you, Grandpa. You got to come in and be family with us. Well, how can he say no to his granddaughter? So he reaches for her hand, and when he reaches for his hand, the dust now of the Mohawk Valley falls on the ground. And as he goes in, he dusts the other one because he knows, and he doesn't have anything in his hands, and he walks into heaven. And he stops, and he gasps. He's right on the banks of the Mohawk River, and he's looking across it, and he can see the mountains coming this way and that way, and he knows the river goes through that little creek. And he turns to his granddaughter and says, is this heaven? He says, yes, Grandpa, this is heaven just like you lived it, just like you want it to be. And that's the story of the man who clung to earth. I love that, John, and I'm stumped on the name. I thought I had it in the middle, but
It's a worship song called Give Thanks by Henry Smith.
Give Thanks by Henry Smith. Thank you for that. I want to introduce you to a poet by the name of Naomi Shabab Nye. And she's currently a faculty at the University of Texas at San Antonio. But her mother was American and her father was Palestinian. And her life has been back and forth between the struggles in Palestine and the joy in Palestine and the joys and the struggles in the U.S. So she writes in an intriguing way. And in one of her poems, which I couldn't find, the whole poem, she says, I want to be famous in the way a pulley is famous, or a buttonhole, not because it did anything spectacular, because it never forgot what it could do. It never forgot what it could do. We've got a little bit of time, so I'm going to share a short story from her, because she writes prose as well as poetry. And it's called The Yellow Glove. What can a yellow glove mean in a world of motor cars and government? I was small, like everyone. Life was a string of precautions. Don't kiss the squirrel before you bury him. Don't suck candy, pop balloons, drop watermelons, watch TV. When the new gloves appeared one Christmas tucked in soft tissue, I heard it trailing me. Don't lose the yellow gloves. I was small. There was much to remember. One day, waving at a stream, the ice had cracked, winter chipping down. Soon we would sail boats and roll into ditches. I let a glove go. Into the stream, sucked under the street. Since when did streets have mouths? I walked home on a desperate road. Gloves cost money. We didn't have much. I would tell no one. I would wear the yellow glove that was left and keep the other hand in a pocket. I knew my mother's eyes had tears. They had not cried yet. I didn't want to be the one to make them flow. It was the prayer I spoke secretly, folding socks, lining up donkeys and windowsills. To be good, a promise made to the roaches who scouted my closet at night. If you don't get in my bed, I will be good. And they listened, and I had a lot to fulfill. The months rolled down like towels out of a machine. I sang and drew and fattened the cat. Don't scream, don't lie, don't cheat, don't fight. You could hear it anywhere. A pebble could show you how to be smooth, tell the truth. A field could show how to sleep without walls. A stream could remember how to drift and change. In June, I was stirring the stream like soup, telling my brother dinner would be ready if only he'd hurried up with the bread. When I saw it, the yellow glove draped on a twig, a muddy survivor, a quiet flag. Where had it been in the 3 gone months? I could wash it, fold it in my winter drawer with its sister. No one in the world would ever know. There were miracles on Harvey Street. Children walked home in yellow light. Trees were reborn and gloves traveled far but returned. 1,000 miles later, what can a yellow glove mean in a world of bank books and stereos? Part of the difference between floating and going down. Naomi Shabab Nye. I loved it. Well, I need a name.
Quiet Place.
We could have figured that out, right?
It's a piece by Take Six, off of one of their initial albums.
It's great. I must confess that I'm not prepared because I don't know who is on board for next week with Jazz Vespers. But there will be people here playing, and we would encourage you to come and to listen in if you're akin to the computer. And I also want to remind you that on the 20th of November, it is our big Jazz Vespers Gala. And it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be 2 hours long. There'll be 2 different main sets and some guest instrumentalists, and there'll be stories. And I've got one reading they've let me do. They had to time me first. But it's going to be a wonderful time, and it's also our fundraiser because we raise a lot of money there, and we then use that to run the rest of the year. I want to go back on Mary. Well, I guess I can't find it, so I'm not going to go back. One of her best one-liners was, "Being good was like a heavy coat, so I took it off." Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Marjorie Geiger has saved my neck. She found it written down in the first things, which I could have looked at before I left home, but didn't. Thank you, Marjorie. Next week, it's Teresa Broadwell on her violin. A jazz fiddle will be quite a thing. And Mike Nowakowski on guitar, and Pete Tiogo on bass. So it'll be a trio, and I haven't seen Peter in a while, so it'll be good to have him back on stage with us. So, I'm going to do some excerpts from a poem by Naomi Shabbat on different ways to pray. There was the method of kneeling, a fine method if you lived in a country where stones were smooth. The woman dreamed wistfully of bleached courtyards, hidden corners where knee fit rock. Their prayers were weathered rib bones, small calcium words uttered in sequence, as if the shedding of syllables could somehow fuse them in the sky. There were those who didn't care about praying, the young ones, the ones who had been to America. They told the old ones, "You are wasting your time." The old ones prayed for the young ones. They prayed for Allah to mend their brains, for the twig, the round moon, to speak suddenly in a commanding tone. And occasionally there would be one who did none of this. The old man Fauci, for example, Fauci the fool, who beat everyone at dominoes, insisted he spoke with God as he spoke with goats, and was famous for his laugh. When we pray, may we be famous for our laughs. Was that time after time?
Yes, it was.
All right, I got one. There you go. I mean, go on. Our hour is almost upon us. I want to give you a chance to acknowledge Zach Nelson, who's done wizardry on the sound. John LeRoy, who's done more things on the piano than I've thought about doing ever. Marjorie Greger, who's going to provide you a snack. And I want to thank you for coming and for being online. And I'm going to close with a little bit of thoughts from Henry David Thoreau, and then you're going to play us out.
Okay.
All right. It is the glistening autumnal side of summer. I feel a cool vein in the breeze which braces my thought, and I pass with pleasure over sheltered and sunny portions of sand where the summer heat is undiminished. And I realize what a friend I am losing. One must maintain a little bit of summer even in the middle of winter. So as you go forward, be aware and be looking for and hold to a little bit of summer. Thank you. Thank you. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and safely home on your journey.